The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. How you doing, Sam?
It is a good day to celebrate 5 wins in a row, Mike. It is officially, good Lord, it is officially Tuesday, Election Day in the United States of America. But that's not what we're here to talk about and discuss. We're here to talk about, sorry folks, it's 1 a.m. for me. We're here to talk about the Phoenix Suns, who are winners of 5 straight and had 2 very interesting skin of their teeth wins this weekend against the Portland Trail Blazers and now the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, we are recording this one essentially immediately after the game against the Philadelphia 76ers, where Kevin Durant put the entire team on his back in that fourth quarter. And they survived a really bad game from Devin Booker, which, honestly, I don't remember the last time they won a game where he played that badly. And that's, I think, was something that really stood out to me in this game because he was not good.
He was atrocious.
Yeah.
He was Rodney Stuckey. He was to bring that meme back. He was 45-year-old Jamal Crawford out there.
I'm he had 50 points, man. Don't forget that.
That was the one good game he had that season. I'll never forget it. But I'm actually gonna look. There must have been like a game last year where Book just shot like this and they still won. Yeah, I mean he had a game like 4 for 16 last year against Portland where they won by 21, 5 for 17 against Denver where they won by 7. But yeah, if you just like look through his game logs, for sure, most of the time if Devin Booker's shooting sub 25, sub 20% from the field on like 15 plus shots, they're not coming out of that with a victory. Not at all.
Yeah, and this game they needed him to play well, but somehow they found a way to win. And I think, a lot of that credit goes to Kevin Durant, which we should start with him. 35 points in this game, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, only 3 turnovers. And I think those 35 points were obviously all very impressive, especially if you think about the fact that he shot 14 for 20, which is just something you get used to from Kevin Durant. But, I mean, the main thing was at the very end of the game, 3 incredibly clutch buckets in a row, with one missed shot in there, a missed pull-up 3 that the Suns got the offensive rebound, and then he just hit a layup immediately after that, and the game was essentially over at that point. It's just one of those moments where everyone was freaking out. Devin Booker was not playing very well. Bradley Beal had another good game, by the way. We can talk about him in a minute. And everyone in the arena, everyone on the coaching staff, everyone on the other team knew exactly where the ball was going, into Kevin Durant's hands. And he still found a way to score, and they won because of that. It's just an incredible thing to have him on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. And where did they go? Thinking about the first shot, the first in a series of clutch shots that he made, where did they go first? Strategically, they went to, as you've talked about already this season, the inverted pick and roll. It was not Yusuf Nurkic setting that screen for Kevin Durant the first time. Nurk came up in one of the later shots. But the first time, it was Bradley Beal setting that screen and then had the ability where he could have potentially caught the ball in the middle of the floor, right? We saw a lot, actually, of KD running pick and roll, inverted pick and roll in this game, and having smalls, whether it be Bradley Beal or Royce O'Neal or Devin Booker, be able to catch in the middle of the floor and make plays. Obviously, though, this time, you knew that KD was taking that final shot.
The switch, right? They were forcing the switch because of the inverted pick and roll. Caleb Martin or whoever was ending up on Caleb Martin a couple of times there on Durant. And they tried at one point to switch and get back to him, and even that didn't work. Even Caleb Martin tried kicking the ball to try to get it away from them, and he still found ways to score. I'm glad you brought up the inverted pick and roll. And if I remember to do this tomorrow, I think I'm going to try to take clips of this. Because every single player, I believe, on the court, outside of maybe Tyus Jones, set a screen in this
KD?
game. Yeah, not just for KD.
Probably not Tyus, but that's actually funny to think about.
Not just for KD, for each other too. Like Beal set screens for Booker, but at certain points of this game, Kevin Durant was setting screens in a pick and roll. Bradley Beal, obviously Yusuf Nurkic does it. Devin Booker did it. Royce O'Neal did it. I remember Ryan Dunn did it. Grayson Allen did it. Every single player, and of course Mason Plumlee, of course, as a center, he's going to do that. But this was one of those games where it really stood out how much they were using the smaller guys to set those screens and sometimes to force switches, but other times, like you said, if there's any semblance of a trap, which they were doing more in the first half than the second half, they would just feed it to somebody in the middle of the floor. There's a couple Bradley Beal ones or Devin Booker ones that stand out in my mind thinking about that first half. But, they have 3 stars. How little they screened for each other really stands out when you watch this team this year. They're constantly screening for each other. It's just happening all the time. And they're really finding ways to exploit defenses doing that. And in this game, I think they actually went to those switches. Like, obviously, they got to do it at the end of a game. I think the way they did it to attack when everyone is a little bit worn down, everyone's a little bit tired, at the end of a game, get those isolation shots, get the best, highest percentage, actual field goal percentage shots towards the end of a game. Not just this amorphous, true shooting percentage, good shot over the course of 100 shots type of shots, right? We need just one good shot.
Yeah.
Do that at the end of the game. But early in the game, I did think they were going to those switches a little too much, and I think it actually slowed them down a little bit and allowed the 76ers to get back into it.
You're talking offensively?
Yeah,
Sorry, or defensively
offensively.
Right now?
Because
like they're trying to attack the switch too much? Okay.
Yeah, just bogging it down into isolation, waiting for a double team, less off-ball movements. Felt a little bit like last year, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose I can see part of that. I just want to look at the assist numbers here, though. Wow, okay, interesting. So Philly actually did end up with more assists in this game, 27 to Phoenix's 24. So that is evidence right there of what you were talking about. I'm thinking back to the Portland game, though, where Portland was... It's funny to me because, again, both of these teams, they won so narrowly, but these were very different games, very different outcomes. The Portland game, there was effectively a lid on the rim for both teams, and neither team could shoot.
Yeah, so you're getting wide open shots in that game.
Exactly. I felt that the process, it is sort of what you were just talking about, the amorphous, let's take 50, 63s over the course of a game strategy and just hope enough of them go in. But you know what? I thought that process was really effective in that game, and they only let Portland back in kind of because they started turning it over and not taking transition defense and other stuff seriously. And of course, they were missing shots too, but they were getting open shots over and over and over again. And then you have this game, which was kind of a shootout between these two teams, right? And that's where it becomes even more relevant to go into the final minutes of the fourth quarter, I think, as you're saying, with a more effective strategy. And that's kind of where that iso ball starts to creep back in a little bit when you can't just... But like that Portland game, I think about, they should have scored 130 points in that game.
Yeah.
And how many did they end up scoring? 103?
Yeah.
I think they won 103 to 97. Like, that's a game where I think something we have to talk about with this team, they're on a 5-game winning streak. They're 6-1, and the vibes are great. They're objectively awesome. Let's look at the Western Conference standings real quick. We've got OKC, who's still undefeated, and then we've got these pesky Golden State Warriors, who are tied with us at 6-1 as the second and third seeds in the Western Conference right now. But, like, this team has not remotely reached its offensive ceiling. They're averaging 114 points per game. I don't have exactly what their offensive rating is right now because the NBA's website hasn't updated yet. But, I would say it's probably on the outside of the top 10. And it feels like we're waiting for one of these explosions like I was kind of anticipating might happen against a bad team in Portland the other night, but didn't, where they actually do go full Boston Celtics on someone and the lids come off and they score 140, right? We're still waiting on everyone to click on the same night instead of just kind of hitting the right beats only precisely when you need to.
Yeah, Devin Booker has a normal game. In this game, they win by 15 points, Like, that's kind of... It's just another one of those nights. And I will say with Devin Booker, he did roll his ankle 2 games ago. He did win, by the way, Player of the Week right before this game and then ended up having this stinker in this game. But he did roll his game 2 games ago, played in the last game with probably a massively swollen ankle, and I was thinking, wow, could this be the game? the Portland game where he doesn't play well because the ankle's bothering him, and it wasn't that. I'm curious if that was something that impacted him in this game. You could even see that confidence just wane over the course of the entire game. He just stopped taking shots in the last 5 minutes of the game entirely. Did have some really nice passes in this game, though. Finds ways to be effective offensively when he's not scoring. Ended the game +1 because it was in there when Kevin Durant was hitting shots at the end of the game. I think that was a big part of it.
Truly just a case of KD putting the team on his back. There are other guys who played well tonight, and I think we'll get to all of them one by one, but this was KD's night.
Yeah. You want to talk about Nurkic?
Yeah, I wanted to get there. You want to go first?
Well, it's interesting to bring up because, Portland and this game as the last two games, thinking about how he played. This game, he finished the game with 15 points and 15 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block.
A critical offensive rebound in the final minute.
Yeah, shout out Grayson
KD
Allen,
missed
too,
one shot.
by the way, because it was a tip by Nurkic and then a tip by Grayson to Devin Booker, who got it back to KD for the final game-winning shot. Plus 16. Highest on the team.
Yeah, man.
In this game.
Yeah.
Yusuf Nurkic, 5 for 8 from the field. But still, those 5 turnovers are brutal, man. Like, they're just a lot of really dumb turnovers for this team.
Just dumb decisions that come at oftentimes the worst possible moments. And what did we go down by in the fourth quarter? It was like an 8-point game,
something like that. Yeah,
or it's like
6.
It was down to a 7.
Yeah,
it was down to a 6, 7, 8-point game, something like that. And it really felt like it was slipping away from them. And it really felt like a lot of that, maybe rightly so, was going to be pinned on Nurkic. I saw you pointing out, because the guy we have to talk about, I think, from the Sixers' perspective in this game tonight, is Guerschon Yabusele,
yeah,
the French standout on their summer team, who then signed an NBA contract and had, let me read out his stat line. First of all, he is not the starting center for the Sixers in the absence of Joel Embiid, right? The starting center for the Sixers is Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond only played 15 minutes tonight. I thought it was very clear every time Andre Drummond touched the floor. The Suns aren't, like, defense was easy for the Suns. They could play their drop coverage. Not only are they not worried about Drummond scoring in the pick and roll, but they're not worried about him passing in the pick and roll either. So it's just, you can be set in your half-court defense, and everything just makes sense when Andre Drummond is out there, which is perhaps why Drummond only played 15 minutes and was a -11 in those 15 minutes. But then this guy Yabusele comes out. He plays 30 minutes and closes the game. He shoots 6 of 14, including 5 of 11 from deep. This is not a guy back several years ago when he played 2 years with Boston who was thought of as a shooter. Even today, he improved his shot overseas, obviously, but I don't think anyone really thought of him as a shooter overseas.
I mean, in the Olympics he was.
But it was going to be like the big question mark of, okay, can this guy still, can he hang? Like, he's got a big body. He's 6 foot whatever and 270 pounds.
280 is what they said today, yeah.
He dunked on LeBron in summer in the Olympics.
We were begging for him on the Suns during the Olympics.
We didn't have
I know
the money.
very few people listened during the offseason, but I'll tell you this. Sam and I wanted Guerschon Yabusele on the Suns.
We didn't have the money.
I don't know. Anyway, I think he might be on a minimum.
I actually don't remember.
Yeah.
I thought he signed for a little bit more than that.
Anyway, regardless, the Suns didn't have the opportunity to sign him.
He finished this game with 19 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists.
6 assists,
and made 6 assists, man.
It's crazy.
A lot of fouls, and made 5 threes. Right? So you were saying at the end of this game, like, it's time to pull Nurkic, right? Because they've got Yabusele. They've got this 5-out spacing. Whether you consider this guy a shooter or not, you have to understand the spacing that they're bringing to the floor at the end of the game, and it's time for Bud to match, and he never did. Did you waver in that opinion at all, just based on us winning the game, or do you not care? Do you care?
No, I think
process over results.
What I didn't anticipate is using Nurkic defensively the way they did. This was the highest we've seen Nurkic play on defense, and specifically Tyrese Maxey absolutely went off in this game. But the stretch where he went off the most is when he just started refusing screens entirely and just shooting pull-up threes on isolations essentially because
That's what he's so good at.
it's insane.
Honestly.
Yeah, it's insane how good he is at that. But there's a little bit of a variance to that where some games it's going to be great and some games it's going to look really bad. But he can also score with screens. But in this game, the Suns were using Nurkic to essentially force the ball out of Paul George's hands or out of Tyrese Maxey's hands by a combination of either just hedging out really far, playing really high, doubling essentially for a second and then running back, or icing, so forcing them towards the sidelines and then just sort of doubling them as they get closer and closer to the basket, which worked particularly well against Paul George. And I think Tyrese Maxey as well, because once they really started committing to that, obviously this is how somebody like Yabusele can go off, right? Because Nurkic is the second defender, and that means Yabusele has room to be open because there's two guys on the ball.
The help defenders are doing their best in those situations to fill in the gaps. And to be clear, I actually thought the Suns' help defenders did a really good job of that in this game.
Especially Royce.
Right, but they're playing 4-on-3,
Yeah.
and there are going to be open shooters on the perimeter.
Yeah. And honestly, Yabusele, not the worst person on a normal night to leave open from that.
Yeah, I mean, dude's been out of the NBA for 5 years. You make him prove it. I totally get that strategy.
Yeah, and obviously he had the game of his life here.
But here's the thing, right? So we're talking about that's what the Suns opted to do with Nurkic. They could have just as easily said, fuck. And this is why it's interesting, right? Because Bud is not averse to playing small ball. He did it in this game. Just in the second quarter. He didn't close with it, but he
not
did
very
in the second
long
quarter.
too, yeah.
Because they were bad in this game.
Yeah, it was bad.
But, he's done it. He's done it in, I think probably there's been one lineup, one configuration of it in every game so far. So he could have just done KD at the 5, let's switch everything, would have been easy. And he chose not to and put a lot of faith in Jusuf Nurkic in doing so. And I think that's a big confidence booster for Nurk in the way that things turned out tonight.
It's one of those, it's a long season type games, right? Where Nurkic is suffering confidence-wise pretty dramatically because of just how bad he's been. Honestly, I think he was 1 for 6 against Portland. I did think with Portland, did we finally find a center that Nurkic could outplay? Because DeAndre Ayton ended 3 for 13 or whatever.
How do you feel? Can I ask, do you have any thoughts on fans booing DA when he comes back to the arena? Do you care or do you not care? You noticed it too, right?
Of course.
During the broadcast.
I'll tell you this. I have a friend that was at the game and he texted me and said, even the children are booing him.
Yeah, I don't get that. I think I don't know. I mean, I know certain fan bases have this reputation, right? Like if you're Boston or if you're Philly or if you're New York or whatever. But I don't know. I guess it depends on how mean-spirited you consider it to be. It's not a particularly mean-spirited act, but I'm just kind of indifferent to DA at this stage of his career.
Yeah, I don't care.
Booing implies a level of care towards DA that exceeds the level of care that he showed when he played basketball for the Suns. He doesn't deserve the boos.
I think
we should all just move on.
Yeah. I think
he's
if
bad.
you could direct all those boos at Robert Sarver or Ryan McDonough, that's obviously the better choice here because, look, he was the only number 1 overall pick. I think it's a big deal, right? He's the only number 1 overall pick the Suns have ever had. So him not living up to the expectations that the fan base had for him, they can point that at whoever they want, but he's the guy in the arena. It's like Robert Sarver's putting a jersey on and standing on the court. You don't have the opportunity to boo him. Fans would have taken that opportunity as well if they had it. But it's just he's the guy that represents that mistake at this point.
I understand why some people are motivated to do it. I'm just coming at it from the perspective of let the man make his $30 million and rot on a bad team for the rest of his career, which is what he's destined to do. And we don't need to think about him. Honestly, is DeAndre Ayton ever going to play playoff basketball again? I'm not sure.
Well, I
think this might just
when
be
he's a backup center on his next deal. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, if he's a minimum contract on a good team.
I don't think he wants to be on a.
His next contract's going to be his next contract's going to be a minimum deal, dude.
Yeah,
I've said it before, and I think there's a real chance that 3 years from now or whenever that is, if he even still wants to play basketball, that's a minimum deal.
You just can't. Yeah. I don't know. How do you make a guy want to play hard all the time? You can't do it. You can't. the money didn't do it, right? So like you can't just count on a big contract, forcing him to do it. It'll be interesting to see like the last year of his contract, what next year or the year after that, whenever it is, how hard he plays when he has the opportunity to make more money, and if that tricks, there's always one or two dumb teams out there. Maybe it tricks a team into giving him some money at that point. But he was really bad. But in that game, Nurkic was awful too. I actually think Nurkic's defense was pretty good in that game. That's where I thought I saw, okay, Nurkic is putting it together a little bit defensively. In the Portland game, he still can't, like, turnovers are just he's really bad at turning the ball over right now. Like,
his brain shuts off, or he's just fully under the impression that he's capable of stuff that he is not capable of. I don't know where it comes from, but yeah. It's too much. He spent
all the offseason watching Jokic highlights, and now he thinks he can do that. But yeah, that's not something that's gone away. But the defense was getting put together a little bit in that game. The finishing obviously was still a problem. Although he did hit 1 3 in that game and another 3 in this game. All 3 of his attempts coming in the first quarter, making every Suns fan afraid he was going to shoot 12 in this game, which of course he ended 1 for 3. But if you do find the way to let your coach have some faith in you to close out a big game, and then you pull off a victory due to a couple of important things that he did, which was, of course, helping shut down Tyrese Maxey, helping shut down Paul George, which, of course, they weren't shut down for the entire game, but in the important moments of this game, which was late in the game, they did not find ways to score, and part of that was because Nurkic was involved defensively. And your coach trusts you, and you get some huge offensive rebounds or defensive rebounds to end the game. Could he put that together? Could he have more confidence coming out of this game for the next game, against Miami and going forward? I sure hope so. Because, we talked about that panic meter, I think, on our last episode. You were at a 4 or a 5. I was around the same area with you.
Yeah, I think I got up to a 5 or 6 even. I don't remember if we discussed it again on the Patreon episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had an absolutely brutal start to the season. The last 2 games have, like, I don't know, slightly relieved my fears in the sense of I think what you're talking about, the defense, right? I need to see the defense click into place. But there are still these just inherent pieces to who Nurkic is as a basketball player. I don't expect him to improve as a finisher. I maybe expect him to shoot 32% from 3. If that's good enough for everyone out there. Maybe it's good enough for you. I don't know. But, like, I'm not expecting too much from him on the offensive end. I need to see the defense, because if I don't have the rebounding and I don't have the defense, then there's no faith that I can even play you for like 20 minutes in important games. That's really all I need from the guy.
Yeah. I think maybe giving him a little bit more leeway to play higher defensively. I still thought that could be a disaster, and I think in this game they proved that there's something there, at least with the right kinds of players. I'm not sure how many teams they could do that against, but more than anything else, we just need him to be effective in the regular season until the trade deadline, and then we'll see what happens there.
It's a really good sign that they were effective in it, and of course Embiid didn't play, but against Tyrese Maxey, who is one of the best pull-up three-point shooters in the NBA at this point, that is a really good sign. And you need to have those different levers to push in multiple ways, right? Like defensively, you need him to play at or above the level of the screen sometimes to apply that pressure, because if an offense is never feeling that pressure, they could just rain down. Like if you catch them on a wrong night, they can rain down threes in your face all night, right? So things can become pretty disastrous pretty fast if you don't have that other option to take those weapons away from teams. But also, going back to the small ball conversation, like I think what we've learned here and what we need to remind fans is small ball is a tool, and it's a very important tool. As we talk about this team needing to be versatile, needing to succeed in the playoffs, of course there are going to be times where they close out the game with KD at the 5 or with other guys at the 5, and those units are going to be really important. We saw in both tonight where that lineup struggled at the beginning of the second quarter. Bud brought in he played KD at the 5, and then I think Philly immediately went on like a 9-0 run. And then the other night against Portland, where that lineup really struggled in the fourth quarter and was turning the ball over a lot and basically hemorrhaged its net rating. Like, small ball is a tool. It's not a silver bullet.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of teams.
Lineup. Yeah.
No, it's and especially I'm not sure the concept of, unless you have like these ridiculously next level talented players, the death lineup. If we just go back and examine that, right? Why was the death lineup the death lineup? Because that was 2016. It was a different NBA. Every team still had some version of a lumbering 7-foot Roy Hibbert in the paint, right? Or at least 80% of them did, that made something like the death lineup possible. It's 8 years later and the league has caught up, and it's not just like you go small ball 5 and then you automatically rain down 140 points on the other team. Now what happens, and this is literally what Chauncey Billups did the other night against Portland, Bud goes to the small ball 5 in the fourth quarter. He says, I want KD at the 5. Chauncey immediately answers, and he says, okay, I'm pulling out DeAndre Ayton, who sucked in that game anyway, and I'm going to throw at you fucking, Tumani Kamara and Jeremy Grant and Denny Avdia and Delano Banton, and basically like
a bunch of 6'8" guys,
5 6'10" wings in the same lineup. And so there are a lot of teams that can just answer immediately in that chess match like that right now, right? So all this to say, we need to have faith in those lineup configurations too. They will be ridiculously important for us throughout the season, but there are also going to be nights like tonight. It's a long season, like you said, where Yusuf Nurkic plays a role, and you just need the big guy to do big guy things and grab a lot of rebounds. And, if he can play in 2 or 3 different defensive schemes, then great.
We're on a Bud conversation now, talking about small ball, talking about some of the decisions he's made. And I kind of wanted to have a check-in with you here after, they're 6-1, second best record in the Western Conference, playing really well, found ways to be effective in close games, clutch scenarios. Basically 3 or 4 of their wins so far, I think, have been in the clutch. What stood out to you about Bud so far? Because I think talking about small ball, talking about some of the decisions he made, the big thing we've talked about is shooting more threes. This is not a game, coming off this 76ers game where that was like a big factor. The 76ers shot way more than the Suns with 51 attempts, and the Suns ended with 32, partially because of getting bogged down into that isolation ball and shooting twos.
Right.
But what stood out to you about Bud so far? What do you think about him as a coach?
I think we did have more threes in this game in the first half, right?
Yeah.
And then it just really slowed down in the second half.
They started switching everything, and that's what I don't want the Suns to get pulled into. And it's really tough because KD's really good in those scenarios. Right. So, how do you find ways to still take advantage of how good KD can be against switches against smaller defenders and also still get more threes up? And I think part of that is just playing faster. They kind of slowed down a lot in this game.
Yeah,
didn't
it's
play as
Tyus
fast
Jones.
as they can effectively play.
I agree with that. I think it's Tyus Jones, and I think it's Bradley Beal too, right? Like when the game slows down like that, you need to rely more on the guys who have the best accelerative ability of the bunch, and that's just not Kevin Durant at this point in his career. It's not really Devin Booker either. Like the guys who can change gears, go east-west, north-south the best, that's when it really falls on Bradley Beal, Tyus Jones. Like you're the guys who have to drive the ball, create an advantage, drive and kick, Boston Celtics style basketball. You might call it boring, but that's how you're going to continue to generate the threes.
Yeah.
Even when other teams are switching.
It's effective. They won a championship doing it, and they're probably going to win another one at this rate.
Well, I don't know, man. We've won 5 in a row. And there's some other good teams in the Western Conference. We'll probably talk about that to close out this episode. But you asked me about Bud. I mean, to be honest, my number one takeaway is still the 3-point shooting. I know they didn't shoot a lot tonight, but it still does stand out to me that much.
I'm going to check. I know the stats probably don't include this game, but
before I looked it up, before tonight's game, they were 7th in 3-point attempts.
Well, then tonight's game may already be factored in because it looks like they are.
Oh yeah, it updated. They're down to 11
now, but they're shooting 39 a game at 11th because teams like the Boston Celtics are shooting over 50 like they promised, and there's just a bunch of teams shooting over 40 this year for the first time ever. Last year there was one team. Right now there's 7, including
There
the Brooklyn
are some
Nets.
absolutely crazy things here as I look around the NBA. So first of all, Boston's taking 51.
Yeah, it's insane.
Charlotte is second at 44. And then
It's crazy.
JJ Redick's Los Angeles Lakers are dead last, taking less than 33s
And
a
he's
game,
begging
which is
them
also
to
wild.
take more. That's
I
what's
know.
crazy. And the Denver
That's
Nuggets
so-
are still
that's
29th,
wild. Yep.
by the way. But
Well, I think Denver just doesn't have the personnel. I mean, the Lakers don't have the personnel either, I guess, really, but more so than the Nuggets.
yeah, sometimes you just got to shoot them even when you don't have the personnel. You know, the Lakers lost 3 in a row now, so who knows if they're actually going to end up recovering from that and being a good team. But sometimes you just got to shoot them. They still are shooting 39. I think that's 7 more than last year. Didn't they finish at 32 last year? So that's still significantly.
More. It's still way more than either of us expected on the over-under episode, I think. We've brought that up a couple times. But, yeah, Bud has transformed this team's offense. We mentioned already on this episode, like, I don't think they've tapped their ceiling. I think there's a ceiling that they have yet to hit offensively, certainly. But the process is there, even if the results aren't. And, yeah, Bud has absolutely transformed them. He's gotten all of them to buy in. I love just kind of watching him up and down. Like, one of my favorite things so far, I don't think he gives crazy answers, after a first or third quarter interview or to the press or anything. He's mostly like the same sort of laid back surfer vibe type of guy. But just watching him during the actual games, he is super animated.
Yeah.
Have you noticed too? Like,
yeah, I agree. More than I thought. On top of the refs, way more than any of the last few coaches the Suns have had.
Way more, I think, than Monty or Frank were.
Yeah.
And not to the point where, I don't think he's gotten a technical foul yet, which is good. I don't want my coach to necessarily be up the ref's ass to the point where, they're hurting the team by by picking up techs left and right. But Bud is like,
he's working him.
He's working him, and he cannot control his body during games in, I think, a good way. Like, he's really patrolling.
Not like Alvin Gentry with the trash can.
I don't know what you're referencing.
When
what
he
was
threw
Alvin
up on
Gentry
the
at
sidelines.
Oh my god, dude, that is such a crazy deep cut. Yeah, I don't know. He's working the baseline. He's working the refs. He's going up and down. I love it. He's not like in on the players in the sense of like, I feel like he's unnecessarily berating them or whatever, but he's passionate.
Oh,
and
he was
feels
pissed
like a guy.
at halftime for that Portland game. I'll tell you that much. He
had the right to be. He had the right to be pissed, and I'd love to know. I'll never know what he said. Exactly in the halftime huddle.
Ryan Dunn talked about it. He said that he'd shoot him out at halftime after
he?
the game. Yeah, so we know he definitely said something that inspired them, because that third quarter they scored over 50 points. I think it was an insane third quarter, 45 points maybe it was, but
above
15
all,
in a row.
He looks like a guy who's been away from the game of basketball for a year, who needed that reset, who got that reset, and is ready to go. He's in the best shape of his life, physically, mentally.
He took a year off. Yeah,
I feel great.
A couple of things that stood out to me. One, 39 minutes a game for KD. Even Bud can't get away from it, man. That KD, whoever he plays for, those coaches are addicted to playing him way too many minutes. And look, they wouldn't have won these games. Like, there at least 2 of these games they would have lost without those minutes by KD. At least. So I understand why. I just hope they find a way to reduce those minutes over the course of the season. This beginning stretch for the Suns is pretty difficult. They're going to reach softer stretches of the schedule. The bench has to play well in order to reduce those minutes for KD. Are you concerned about that at all before I move on to the other stuff?
Yeah, I've absolutely thought about it. I've absolutely thought about how I said probably half a dozen times over the offseason, like, oh, Bud, given what he did with Giannis and the Bucks, like, KD's going to play 32 minutes a game this year. That is not happening at all.
No.
It's not happening at all, and for sure has been something that, to be honest, shocked me early on in the season. Yeah.
Other thing, he plays a ton of different lineups.
Oh, yeah.
Like you never know who's going to be on the court at certain times of the game. He's just, I'm curious how much of that is, this team has a lot of different types of players that you can play off of the bench right now, right? So you have right now, currently 5th in minutes per game for the Suns is Royce O'Neal. Earned it, right? We know that. We've been talking a lot about how well he's been playing, 25 minutes a game. And then you have Grayson Allen. Damian Lee played one game, but he played that game, and it was important for him to play that game. And then Ryan Dunn. Monte Morris didn't play at all in this game. There are going to be games where Monte Morris doesn't play at all. Sometimes he does play, sometimes he doesn't.
Dude, can I be totally honest with you for a second?
Yeah.
You saying that just now is the first time I noticed that Monte Morris did not play in this game against the 76ers. I did not notice. Literally didn't think about it until you just said that.
That's really funny.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. I didn't think about it. Just didn't question it.
I understand. Like, if you're trying to get Grayson Allen, specifically more minutes, who I think has been playing well in the last 2 games, finally had a sort of a breakout game for him this season, that Portland game, and then I think played well again today in the 76ers game. It's tough to find minutes for both Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, Ryan Dunn, all 3 of those guys off the bench, without limiting Monte Morris's minutes, who also has been playing well for the Suns. It's tough situation for him to be playing.
unless you're limiting like Mason Plumlee's minutes.
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
Like
that's true.
if Mason doesn't play and you run 20 minutes of small ball, that's how you work those extra guys in. But then you're going to be super small.
Yeah. So there's just so many different lineup combinations that we've seen in play so far. I guess my big thinking on that looking forward is how much of that is just experimentation now, finding the right mix of guys, finding the right things against different types of defensive schemes or different types of offensive teams, and how much of that is just who he is, just kind of going with the gut feeling in the moment and actually trying different things. I'm really curious about that because this is a new coach. Monty Williams is very predictable in his lineups. He was,
Yeah,
like
was.
you could kind of predict who was going to be on the court at what point of any game, except when he threw a wrench in there and started 2 bigs at certain times.
We've had Colin Gillespie play regular season minutes already, and this is almost a fully healthy roster.
Yeah.
Right? I think Bud's just, I'm going to lean on the first thing you said. He's a data guy. He's in the experimentation phase. He wants to, I'm sure he's got analytics people in his ear too. Like they want to know what works and what doesn't. And they want to build up the requisite sample sizes to do so. So that, knock on wood, if everyone's relatively healthy this season, by the time we get into the playoffs, they've got some lineups with a few hundred minutes here, a few hundred minutes there that they can really rely on. But when push comes to shove, we've seen, just because he historically with the Bucks used a deep bench, when he got into the playoffs with the Bucks, Giannis was playing 45 minutes if he had to, right? Drew Holiday was playing 45 minutes if he had to. When they beat us in the finals, they had a 6-man rotation by the end of the finals, right? So he's experimenting right now with what works, but I'm not worried about it long term.
Another thing for Bud, this guy was known for not making a lot of changes during the game, no adjustments is kind of what a lot of Bucks fans said about him. And I think that perception of him, even from Bucks fans, changed over the course of his time as the coach of the Bucks. But it was something that Giannis said right before he was fired. And I'll tell you this, not my impression of him so far with the Suns. Whether it be benching Nurkic for the Clippers game in order to win it, trying small ball at different times of the game, playing minutes without KD on the floor with Ryan Dunn at center. There's been a ton of little adjustments, or even today, switching to a scheme where they were icing heavy late in the game, keeping Nurkic on the floor, trying different ways to shut down guys without Embiid on the floor. This guy's made a ton of adjustments, in-game adjustments, for the Suns so far, and they're obviously winning. And I think a couple of these games, last Clippers game in particular, were a lot because of the adjustments that he made mid-game. So I think I don't know if it's just something that he's learned, after being fired, or if it's just the way he always was. And how fans are of individual teams, they find things that aren't always true, but they'll pick on it when it comes to coaches. But what do you think? Do you agree with that?
Which part of it?
That he's making a lot of in-game adjustments?
Yeah, no, that's the part I agree with, that he is doing a good job of making adjustments. I think the reputation kind of unfairly was bestowed upon him in the first place. And I understand, lack of playoff success at a certain point up until they won the championship. And I guess to a certain point even afterwards will do that. But also a lot of it was personnel based in Milwaukee, this idea of Bud doesn't make adjustments. I mean, he built a system that worked for them in the regular season, but Brook Lopez, in the prime of his career, was so central to this identity behind the Milwaukee Bucks, defensively, offensively, everything, that asking Bud to make adjustments around that, he learned over the years. He started playing more Giannis, small ball, Bobby Portis, small ball, more switching, more playing at the level of the screen, right? He worked it in, but I think this reputation of, he doesn't make adjustments was kind of just because the Bucks decided from an organizational standpoint that they wanted to play one way. And I don't think that was ever really on Bud. So, yeah, he's coming to Phoenix, and I think he's done a great job. I think, if anything, it's on Bud that he's doing a good job, but it's also on James Jones, who I think has thought about these things and has done his best to present Bud with a roster that is relatively insulated from being able to play in just one way. There are tons of different, as you just said a few minutes ago, there are tons of different guys, tons of different archetypes on this team. And just the differences between Yusuf Nurkic and KD, if you want to play him at that position, and Oso Ighodaro and Ryan Dunn and whoever, they all play in different ways. And any coach, if presented with those different talents, should be able to find a bunch of different combinations that suit them.
Does he hate Bol, do you think?
Maybe a little bit. I think he hates Bol on defense. I think that's why Bol's
It's really tough. It really makes a lot of sense. Being that Ryan Dunn is playing well, to start the season. And by the way, are you concerned about his three-point shooting now? It's down to 35%. I think he missed his last 6 in a row, maybe 7 in a row.
It was always going to regress. If it's at 34 on the season, I've always considered that a win. If it gets down to 28, then maybe we have a problem.
Hey, I'm a little worried. I don't want it to be broken again.
Some of the
misses have been really bad.
It's not broken. Just look at the form. There's going to be ebbs and flows. Dude,
he'll
it's
still
a
play.
long season. You can't be doing this to me now.
He'll still play because his defense is that good. I do think there's some focus things. He's still a rookie, right? There's some focus things that can be cleaned up. There's things he can do better defensively. I think in particular, if he's guarding a star, there's just no help. Don't help off of stars. It's one thing if you're off ball a little bit and you have the ability of being that help defender. It's another thing when you're on really good players, even Jeremy Grant, players like that are still really good, but maybe not superstars. Paul George can kill you if you leave him even for a second. Tyrese Maxey can kill you if you leave him for a second. Which, by the way, I think Ryan Dunn maybe did the best on those two guys individually in this game in particular. But if Ryan Dunn's playing really well to start the season, which he has been, how do you find minutes for Bol unless you play him at center? And he's not good enough to do that. We've talked about that time and time again. So I guess if we had predicted that Ryan Dunn would play this well, I think we would have easily predicted that Bol would not be getting minutes. It just makes sense.
He is the only, I'm looking now at all the season stats, Bol is the only healthy full-time player on the Suns roster who has yet to log a minute, right? Because Oso's played, Monte's played.
Yep. 13 guys have played, yeah.
Damian Lee has played. 13 guys have played. One of them is a two-way because it's Colin Gillespie. Mm-hmm. And again, crazy, even Colin Gillespie has played. Yeah. The only other full-time guy who has not played is Josh Okogie, and that's just because he wasn't available until tonight. He got a DNP CD tonight against the Sixers, but this was his, or actually maybe he became available against Portland, I want to say. So Josh is technically available to play again, and he just hasn't played for the last 2 games. Wouldn't expect that to change either.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's a guy that you probably need if you have injuries, because he can come in and we've seen him be effective. You don't want to rely on him in big moments, but we've seen him be effective in short stints in the regular season.
Yeah, I think it's still a privilege if Josh Okogie is now your 14th man in terms of the level of depth and talent that you have on the bench. Even, just to throw some more flowers at Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal, this game against the Sixers, they combined for 29 points. And it was the first time all season long that both of them had a good game. Up until now, it's been mostly Royce, and then, the one game against Portland where Grayson was the guy who had a good game. But it's like the floor of the Suns bench last year was so low. There were games where you were getting 7 total points out of the bench. Maybe not literally. You were getting, I don't know, like 15 total points. Now it feels like, I'm sure there's still going to be times where just no one is hitting anything. But like the probability is very low that, or I'll put it another way, like if you've got both Royce O'Neal, the way he's playing right now, and Grayson Allen giving you 20, 25 minutes off the bench, probability is pretty high that one of those guys is going off for 15 in any given night. Like there's a certain floor of production to the Suns bench now that just did not exist last year and is just a huge boon to what they're able to do on any given night.
I want to talk about the standings and just kind of do a little recap on what we think about the NBA so far. I think some interesting things are happening right now as far as teams, where they're at winning-wise and how sustainable some of this is. And I'm curious to your thoughts on that. First of all, the Thunder. We'll start in the Western Conference because I do want to talk a little Eastern Conference too because I think there's a couple of things I want to point out. But Thunder is 7-0. Hartenstein, I don't think has played a single minute. He hurt his wrist in preseason. And they're playing a ton of small ball. And they're kind of beating the hell out of teams right now. And look, we all anticipated they were going to be good. It's pretty impressive still to start 7-0. They've never done it as a team. Very few teams even start like that. There is one other team currently doing that in the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are, I think, 8-0 now. Yeah, they are. The Thunder are good, man. I guess there's not much that we can say. This is sort of what we anticipated here, right? Do you have any Thunder thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Chet is really fucking good. Their defense, I think, is top notch, like literally number 1 or maybe number 2 or something in the NBA right now.
Caruso made a massive difference, yeah.
Caruso makes a massive difference on the perimeter. He's not even making shots right now. I think I'll pull up the stats. Caruso is literally shooting 13 again, these stats have not updated depending on what they did tonight, but 13% from deep. He's shooting 27 from the field and 13 from deep. He's 2 for 16 from 3 this year. Alex Caruso. He has more rebounds than he has points scored at this point.
It's crazy.
And yet he's still a nightmare to deal with defensively, racks up steals all the time, and to have Chet down low anchoring their defense. Like you said, Hartenstein hasn't even played yet. I would mostly say they are who we expected them to be, which is just really, really, really good. And now I'm going to have to look up when the Suns' first OKC game is, so we can circle that date on the calendar.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Tied for second and third place here, or second place really, are of course the Suns at 6-1, and the Warriors at 6-1. And the Warriors, by the way, missing Steph Curry for the last few games, continuing to win games with, I think you could say, no superstar on the court, right? I mean, like, who would you call? Draymond is the star, I guess, right?
There's no superstar.
It's just as far as, like, I don't know if they can sustain this. Like, this is early enough that we can have that conversation about a lot of these teams. But, like, that's a really impressive coaching job by Steve Kerr so far. They're running split cuts with, like, Podziemski, and Kuminga. And, like, there's guys that really should not be this good based on if you just look at their roster alone, if you factor in Steph Curry missing multiple games so far. But they're 6-1, and they do look really good. And honestly, Draymond looks really good. I hate to say it, but he does look really good defensively. And as the guy that's the de facto point guard on that team, especially with Steph Curry out.
Yeah, they've got guys who are heating up at the right time, right? Buddy Hield and Andrew Wiggins.
The Podziemski net rating numbers are insane right now, too. Like, they're so good when he's on the floor. It's kind of crazy.
I haven't looked at any of that. So
it's kind of funny to think about. They tanked multiple years. And their best player that they
got
Wiseman
and
Kuminga, and Podziemski might be the best player they drafted in that time. Was he even drafted? I don't even know where Podziemski was drafted.
I actually don't remember. He was Yeah, he was the 19th pick in the 23 draft.
That was a non-tanking year.
I mean, it's just like the Suns tanked for Josh Jackson and Dragan Bender and DeAndre Ayton, and then Ryan Dunn comes along, and sometimes it's just never who you expect. By the way, just to put a complete cap on the thought I had a minute ago, November 15th, people, November 15th, that's less than 2 weeks from now. That is the first Suns Thunder game.
I think
circle your calendars for that. Not only is it
could be back by then too, I think.
It's a group stage game for the in-season tournament.
That's right.
So that is going to be a really fun one.
Emirates
and I think
Cup.
It's weirdly not on national TV, but that's okay. You know what that means, actually? That might have to be a playback game.
Yeah, I mean, that's brave.
Friday, November 15th.
Like
we'll see.
Fourth in the West right now, the Rockets, who are 4-3, but also the other teams that are 4-3, the Rockets, the Mavericks, the Lakers, the Timberwolves, the Nuggets, the Kings are all currently 4-3. And I think there's a chance, like, the Western Conference is going to be like this the whole year. Like, I don't know what the Nuggets are going to be. They're a team that the wins that they have honestly kind of look like the win the Suns just had, but that's like all of their wins so far, where they're just barely squeaking them out right at the end of the game. And I don't know how long they can sustain that. One bad stretch, I think Jamal Murray didn't play tonight, but one bad stretch by one of their good players is going to tank their season pretty heartily. But there's just a bunch of teams really mixed up in here. I don't think any of this is surprising. I think the Grizzlies being 4-4 underneath that, 10th currently in the West, is maybe a little surprising. I think some people expected them to be better right out of the gate, but to me, that's not a huge surprise. Does anything else stand out to you in the Western Conference?
I just don't think any of these teams are going to stand out from the pack for a while. We're going to need a few weeks before they start to separate themselves.
The Timberwolves, to me, is the best team of this group. The Mavericks, I think, could put it together a little bit more.
Yeah, I haven't watched a Wolves game yet.
They're integrating a completely different type of player into their team. So 4-3 is not even a bad record if you factor that in. But Julius Randle doesn't play like they played last year. So it's going to be interesting to see how they put it together. But I think the Timberwolves just have the personnel to be the best defense maybe outside of OKC, and that could carry them to a lot of wins this year, in my opinion.
DiVincenzo really hasn't found his stroke yet. I'm just looking at their stats now. He's taking 7 threes a game, but only at 31% so far. Talk about guys who heat up at the right time for his career. What he did last year for the Knicks was so insane. We know that the Jazz suck. That's all we know at the bottom of the Western Conference.
And
that
they won today. Today was their first win.
Who'd they beat today?
I didn't even watch it. Every team was playing today. It was tough to keep up with.
They beat Chicago. Fuck off. They
Chicago.
They beat Chicago by 9. And let's see if there's any fun stuff here. This is a really weird box score for Chicago.
It's a weird team in general. Both of those teams are very weird. Chicago should be better than the Jazz, though.
Kobe White had 28. Vooch had 23. Dosunmu had 25.
Wow. And they lost.
They still lost.
Markkanen must have killed it in this one. Let's talk about the Eastern Conference.
Markkanen did not play. The Eastern Conference is weird.
Eastern Conference is weird. Cavs are 8-0. Number one. The Celtics somehow, they're killing teams, right? Every game they win by like 20 points. So if you sort by net rating, the Celtics are going to be number one with a bullet in the entire NBA, but not by wins. That's currently the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are also winning a lot of games, have yet to lose so far in this season. But we're talking about the top two teams, 8-0 for the Cavs, 7-1 for the Celtics. The next best team is the Heat and the Knicks, who are 3-3, not even above.
Play on Wednesday.
Yeah, these teams are not even above 500 right now. So we're talking only two teams in the entire Eastern Conference currently above 500. It really feels like we're back in like 2010 or something when the Eastern Conference was just really top heavy and bad. And part of that is teams like the Bucks, who have won one game and look like shit. Like they look really bad. Yeah.
Total dumpster fire. I mean, we both took the under on them, right? I think we said they would like not win 50 games this year or whatever. But I didn't think they were going to. I mean, they're in danger of trading Giannis by December and going 20-62, right? I don't really think that's going to happen, but it's not the most far out thing you've ever heard.
The Brooklyn Nets are 4-4 right now and the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, things are going to dramatically change. But like they got to trade some players. You know what I mean? They can't keep winning games. This is a chance to get Cooper Flag here. Like,
do they own their pick this year?
Yeah, but they traded back. They traded the Suns picks for their picks back. So they have them again. Yeah. So they have the ability of actually, they should be bad. They should try to be bad now. And, seeing them at 4-4, it does make me wonder what's going to happen there. Like, are they going to start trading that will even soon?
Out. No, they will just naturally get worse. I think we don't have to worry too much about that.
Cam Thomas is going crazy right now, averaging 25 points a game.
We all knew Cam Thomas was going to average 25 points per game, but whether he was going to do it on 25 shots a game was the question. Some of these teams, it's just unfortunate. Like Orlando, they're 3-5. Paolo came out of the gate. He had that 50-point game
he
like
looked
a week
amazing.
ago.
Yeah,
and then immediately, what is it, like a calf injury?
I think it's like a torn pec or something like that. It's like a weird upper body injury.
I'll have to look it up, but it's something that's going to have him out for like 6 weeks. So like that takes that team out of the running that otherwise was going to be, I think, a threat for top 4 standing in the Eastern Conference. Yeah. And they'll be able to tread water, I think, without him, but it makes a huge difference.
The Pacers have not been great. Tyrese Halliburton has not played well to
That's
start
where I was
the season
going next.
either. That's very
Tyrese
bizarre.
looks bad.
Yeah.
And then the Bucks and Sixers are both dumpster fires. This is not even to speak on the Joel Embiid Philadelphia Inquirer columnist incident, which somehow we haven't brought up yet.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean,
if you could hit
kind of
one
felt
member,
like he deserved it, right?
If you could slap one member of Phoenix Suns media, who would you choose?
Probably, I don't know. It's a good question. I'd have to think on that. Do you have
being
somebody
very
in mind?
Diplomatic. Yeah, but I'm not going to say his name on this episode. For me, the choice is clear and people can speculate.
I think I know exactly who you're thinking of. That's for the Patreon.
Subscribe for $6 a month to hear what member of Phoenix
we
media
name
I would
names.
slap.
I think the East
Bro,
has been very.
It's 2 a.m., dude. I can't. I'm really at risk of fucking letting it fly at this point.
Pistons beat the Lakers today, by the way. I enjoyed that as well.
That was actually, I wanted to say that too. The Pistons, weirdly, about the East, could they be decent?
I think they could be a play-in team.
Could they be 500?
I think the Nets are,
is there a world
right
where
now,
the Pistons are 500 this year?
Probably not, but I think you could be a play-in team under 500. The Nets are 5, the Bulls are 6, right? And the Magic are 8, and the Magic, of course, have hurt Paolo. I think there's a chance the Nets and the Bulls just drop out of this entirely. The Nets incentivized to be bad. The Bulls, first of all, they're not going to remain healthy the whole season. And, they're just not very good. So I think they're going to drop out of that a little bit unless Kobe White just has an incredible season, which he's definitely capable of. So the Pistons could jump even higher, right? They could be somewhere around, I don't know, 9, 8, probably at their ceiling, but they could probably finish there. They're 10th right now. But I think you can expect the 76ers to move up if Joel Embiid plays. And there's a chance the Bucks put it together enough they're currently last. They're currently last in the entire conference, in the entire NBA. They have the same record as the Utah Jazz. I think there's a chance they put it together. Any thoughts on Giannis requesting a trade? Do you think that's going to happen?
I just can't see it happening.
I could see it happening, but 20 games from now if they're still terrible. It wouldn't happen now.
I'm just not sure it's going to happen in the season. I think that's more of a summer thing that he would do. But I don't know. It depends on how... I mean, he already has a ring, so it depends on how fed up he truly is. For me, if I'm uprooting my family and doing all that, that's like a summer. That's a conversation for July.
Yeah.
More than it is a February trade. It's not like I'm Kevin Durant, I'm 36 years old, so I want to be traded right now type of thing, and then it ends up happening in February. I don't know. I would be surprised, but I suppose it could happen. How about the Charlotte Hornets being 2-5 with LaMelo averaging 30 points per game? That feels kind of iconic.
It's a team where if they're on, and I'm watching League Pass, which I've done a lot of this season already, I'll put it on when he's playing. Like, you know what I mean? Because like he's nuts and he plays I don't think there's any coaching him at this point. You play how LaMelo wants to play, and it's not going to lead to a ton of wins at this point of his career. It will lead to a ton of stats for him, but they're not going to win a ton of games. They're close in a lot of these games because the amount of threes that he's launching. He had 9 threes in a game just a few games ago. And they have the most insane broadcast crew of any team in the NBA. Their announcer is out of his mind. He's constantly screaming. It's just a perfect League Pass watch. You know, you get to see them, first of all, but if they're playing a team that you're interested in, you get to see those players play either in a game where they're killing a team or a close game where they actually have to play against a team who's trying to win. But
the way you speak about them, it kind of makes it feel like almost like this sideshow attraction.
Yeah.
Like it's not basketball. The Charlotte Hornets are the Savannah Bananas of the NBA. They're doing their entirely own thing, and no one even understands what sport they're playing.
The
anymore.
longer we
But
see
they're gonna do
LaMelo
it.
just lose, it defies logic. He's a huge shot creator that makes a ton of threes and passes the ball really well, but he still continues to make decisions that force them to lose games. It defies logic. I'm losing faith in him over time. I was never that high on him to begin with, but I'm losing more faith over time as I watch them play. Any other thoughts on the standings?
Not so far. You know, we'll check back in a couple weeks after things shake out a little bit more.
Do
Big
we
game against Miami on Wednesday. That should be another fun challenge.
Yeah, let's
for the
watch.
Suns, I think.
We're gonna watch that on playback. So join us for that game. We'll do that one on playback. Do we have to talk about the Stephen A. Smith, Kevin Durant thing?
I like the fact that KD came down on him. I don't really have any opinions outside of that. Do you? Like about the state of media? We've done that before.
I just feel like it would be nice if we did not have to talk about him at all, Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah, no, I think
You know
that's
what I mean?
I
Like-
think that's totally a good editorial decision on your part.
Yeah, I get why Kevin Durant feels the need to. And, you know, I do think there's, you know, the way people talk about his leadership is almost, we can almost have a whole podcast about that entirely if we want to talk about that. But it's different the way Stephen A. Smith talks about it, the way Charles Barkley talks about it, and the way that players that have played around him talk about it has been completely different throughout his career. And that's just a weird thing. You know, I do think people discuss Kevin Durant in a weird way. And I'll be honest, having covered him on this team for, 2.5 years or whatever it is at this point, 1.5 years, I guess, not that long. I understand it a little bit. It's kind of hard to discuss him because he's so effective and it's not always perfect. It's difficult to discuss him. I understand it. But yeah, this whole Stephen A. Smith thing, it's just one of those things where it's like, we have to talk about him because ESPN chose to give him this massive, massive platform. And, that's why Kevin Durant feels the need to say something. And for those who don't know, Kevin Durant just fired back at him for this leadership conversation that Stephen A. likes to have. And then, of course, Stephen A. turned that into 30 minutes of content on his show or whatever.
Of course, yeah, it gave him exactly what
And
he
it just
wanted.
feeds that beast that constantly needs something, right?
Yeah.
I'm over it.
Yeah, I'm over it too. It sucks that ESPN rewards it. And you see it again and again with the decisions that their leadership makes, their executives make. And it sucks. It sucks, but that's the world we live in. Big week for the Suns this week, too. I'm going to shift our attention back over, not just because of Miami, but I'm actually looking at the schedule now. Miami on Wednesday, Dallas on Friday,
Yeah.
Sacramento on Sunday.
Is that Dallas
I wanna-
game an ESPN game?
I think so.
Okay.
I want to give a shout out to the schedule makers as well, because what you may notice is no back-to-backs here.
Yeah.
They are coming on the schedule. There will be back-to-backs eventually. But good job. Good job,
Yeah.
whoever wrote that program or bot that makes the schedule these days, because I know it's not a human who does it anymore. Because I like to see this team, have a chance to kind of lick their wounds clean and,
If they're
and come
gonna have
into
a tough
games as
schedule.
refreshed as possible.
If you're going to have a tough schedule to start the season, not that there's an easy schedule in the West, but if you're going to have a tough one, having some rest days helps a lot. So yeah, join us on playback for the Miami Heat game, playback.tv/the timeline. You can watch with us if you have League Pass and are outside of the blackout area Otherwise, just listen along while we watch the game and try to sync up with us as best as you can. If you'd like extra episodes, of course, sign up for our Patreon, patreon.com/thetimeline, and check out ethicalhoops.com for all of our merchandise. You got anything else before we go, Sam?
That's all for me.
All right, thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back very soon.